o'clock on a Friday morning. It's the first day of June 2007. Take a good look at the crowd that we've got gathered here at Rockefeller Plaza, what is now the country capital of the country, because we've got the sensational duo, Big and Rich.
That's right, we're Nashville North.
Performing live on our plaza in just about a half an hour from now. These guys are great. They're going to sing a song. I love the title of the song, Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy.
There you go.
That's one of the songs they're going to perform this morning when they take to the stage, as I mentioned, in about a half hour. I'm Matt Lauer, along with Meredith Vieira and Al Roker. And also coming up in this half hour, we're going to talk about wedding insurance. How many weddings do you think a year in this country are scrapped because of cold feet?
Wow. How many?
Yeah.
10%. 2,000.
2,000? Well, there are 2.5 million weddings in this country every single year. Julia Roberts, by the way, raised to an art form the idea of leaving someone at the altar in that movie Runaway Bride. But of the 2.5 million weddings in this country every year, 10,000 or so
10,000?
are scrapped because someone decides not to go through with it. So should you buy insurance and take it out on your wedding? We're going to talk about the pros and cons.
I didn't have cold feet. Did you guys have cold feet?
Not whatsoever. No. I had feet warmers.
Why don't you just say, do you love your wife?
That's right.
All right. Then how could a guy who doesn't even really like spelling bees win the whole shebang?
All right, Meredith, thanks very much. You can insure yourself for everything from fires to floods to burglars who get into your house in the middle of the night. And now couples getting set to tie the knot can buy a plan that protects them from the cruelest catastrophe of all, cold feet. It's a moment with a lot of buildup, meant to be cherished forever. But in the race to the altar, sometimes someone runs off course.
Every year in the United States, there are about 2.4 million weddings that take place. And of those, about 10,000 are canceled.
For years, insurance companies have offered protection against unforeseeable events like severe weather or flight delays. But now, Fireman's Fund Insurance has gone a step further with an insurance rider to cover a last-minute change of heart.
The rider's called Change of Heart, also known as Change Your Mind About Getting Married.
The idea of a runaway bride was glamorized on film, but it was a real runaway bride whose cold feet and drastic measures were the catalyst.
When Jennifer Wilbanks, also known as the Runaway Bride, skipped town 2 days before her wedding, a lot of parents who had daughters who were about to be married called insurance companies, including Fireman's Fund, asking for this kind of risk, whether or not it would be covered if it happened to them. And it wasn't covered by any insurance company at that point. She claimed that she had been kidnapped. So that's a pretty extraordinary measure to go to if you're not sure you want to go through with the wedding. It's a very difficult thing to do. I know I canceled a wedding myself.
Carrie Coolidge called off her wedding with far less drama than Wilbanks, but it still cost her father some cash.
He lost around $10,000, which is quite a lot of money.
But thankfully for her, there's a happy ending.
I'm happily married to another person. My father was happier than just about anybody else to make it to the reception and have me be there.
As you just heard, Carrie Coolidge wrote about her experience in Forbes magazine. Millie Martini Bratton is with Brides magazine. Ladies, good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
So, and again, happy ending for you. We're happy to hear about that. How tough was it to call off the wedding?
Well, it was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do in my entire life. I was letting down so many people, not only the fiance, but my father and all of my friends and bridesmaids, everybody.
How close to the date did you do it?
I did it 6 weeks beforehand. It was literally the day before the invitations were about to be mailed out.
Which is better than the invitations already being out, I would imagine. When you did this, did you think about the emotional impact of this? Did you also stop to think about the economic impact?
Well, I mean, that was one hesitation I had, but I just couldn't go through with it. I was dreading it. It was the wrong thing to do for me, and my father was very supportive. And
your dad, who was supportive, who lost $10,000, this policy, this kind of change of heart policy, would it have covered that $10,000?
It would have. He would have been reimbursed for nearly every expense that he incurred had it been available at that time.
Millie, there's a stigma attached to things like prenups. People say, well, it's kind of, you're destined then to have the relationship fail. Do you think the same stigma is going to be attached to a policy like this?
Well, it's true. Everybody wants to focus on the happiness of an engagement, and they should, because most marriages do go through. But engagement is just that. It's a trial. It's not marriage. And really serious issues come up, like children and family and religion, that become very, very real. And so it's just practical to think about.
But let's do a little hypothetical situation. You're engaged to someone. That person comes to you and says, hey, maybe we should take out change of heart insurance. If that puts a strain, if that discussion puts a strain on a relationship, should you walk away from the idea and abandon it, like some people suggest with the talk about a prenup?
I think you should think seriously about it. Marriage is a serious and legal binding contract, and it's not all about romance and flowers. You are legally binding yourself to someone you'll spend the rest of your life with. If you don't agree on certain things, you at least have to talk about them, even if it's not romantic.
I guess there's two schools of thought on this. Some people are going to say, okay, taking out an insurance policy against cold feet is going to take the romance out of the process, and that's a bad thing. The other side of the coin, though, would be taking out an insurance policy against cold feet puts some common sense into the process, and that's desperately needed at a time like this.
That's right, but it's important to note that the bride or the groom can't actually buy this insurance.
Yeah, I'm glad you make that point. You cannot take this out on yourself.
Right, only a financially interested party, typically the bride's parents, can get this insurance, and it has to be purchased at least 4 months before the event.
So that's to prevent someone from taking out a big insurance policy and then pulling the plug on purpose.
Right. And it doesn't have to be completely unromantic. I mean, you don't buy fire insurance on your house expecting your house to burn down, and typically it doesn't.
Yeah, but you know how those discussions go. They evolve into, why would you get cold feet? What do you have doubts about? And next thing you know, you're in a fight before the wedding even takes place.
And sometimes it can completely reassure you you're doing the exactly right thing, too. But it is an important discussion to have.
All right. What about the people who are seriously considering calling off a wedding right now? This is wedding season. You know there are people watching right now with cold feet. What's the best advice you would give them? What are the ways to do it correctly?
Well, first, and I'm sure you did this, depending upon how much time you have, call, email, or write everybody. Let them know so they can change their plans. You don't have to do it. Have a family member
So
do
don't
this.
let the information out in dribs and drabs. Get to everyone on the list who has an interest in this wedding and do it quickly.
And then let your vendors know and halt all the progress that's been going on about your wedding so they can free up their time.
Even
as well.
if you probably you may lose a couple of deposits unless you have this policy. Just let them know quickly.
You should have a contract with every single vendor, and you should ask during your wedding planning, no matter how you feel about your wedding, what's the refund policy, what's the cancellation policy, and do that with everybody, florist, caterer, photographer, everyone.
Any gifts that you've already received, return.
With a thank you note. And no explanation. Just thank you for the gift. The wedding's been canceled. No explanation is necessary.
Carrie, what about someone who's sitting out there right now who is saying, okay, I've got pre-wedding jitters. I've got cold feet, but I'm sure this is going to pass. How do you know if it's just cold feet, pre-wedding jitters, or you have a serious problem with the relationship? What advice would you give?
Well, for me, I spent some time talking to my very best friends in the whole world, and they didn't think I was making the right decision. And I needed their encouragement to help me come to that final decision of actually canceling it, which was the best thing I ever did.
Had you had serious doubts before you canceled it? I mean, were they telling you something you already knew deep in your heart?
They were. They brought it to my attention before I realized it myself, and it just got me thinking, and I knew that it was the right thing to do.
Carrie, thank you. Millie, thank you. It's a new world. Insurance against cold feet. And now, back to Meredith.
Matt, thanks.